Ever since I was young, the only things that were on my mind was nothing but Godzilla. Some of you people who know me may already know that, but I want to tell my entire story on how and why I love Godzilla so much, and still do. This is the story of my Godzilla addiction. The earliest memory that I can remember from when I was young, maybe about 3, 4, or maybe 5, I really love Godzilla. The first movie I ever saw was on an old VHS tape of what better way to see your very first Godzilla movie than King Kong versus Godzilla. I still remember watching this movie a lot, and yes, I still have the poor old VHS my dad got from a local Kmart way back when. But back then, I loved it so much just because I thought it was just the coolest thing ever. Because this movie had like these super realistic effects with guys in crazy cheesy monster suits destroying buildings and fighting each other. And every time the movie was over, I remember getting up and rewinding it and watching it over and over and over again. I swear I did that for maybe like 2 days straight. I don't remember, but still, it was quite an experience. My parents, of course, had lots of other monster movies like Rodan, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, War of the Gargantuas, Godzilla vs. Megalon, and King Kong Lives, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, and another copy of the movie, but of course it was just that stupid title changed where they called it Godzilla vs. Cosmic Monster. And of course they even had Godzilla 2000 and the 1998 American remake with Zilla. Also, if you go into any Goodwill, I guarantee you will find at least one or more copies of that movie along with Titanic on VHS. When I was younger, I was a little more fond of the classic movies like Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster and War of the Gargantuas, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, and mostly King Kong vs. Godzilla. Some of the other movies like Rodan and Godzilla 2000, and yes, even the 1998 remake, didn't really interest me enough back then, because I thought it was boring. Because, well, I was a little kid back then, of course, so what do you expect? And of course, since my parents paid attention to my interest with Godzilla, they got me some toys of Godzilla. So we went to a mall that was a few miles from our home, from my first home, and I got my very first Godzilla action figure. This right here is the first Godzilla collectible I have ever had, and I will carry it with me until the day I die. It means so much to me and has so much sentimental value. Of course, this was just the beginning of my whole Godzilla craze. I kept getting more toys, and soon my dad began to record Godzilla movies on VHSs whenever they happened to be on TV, or back when he already recorded them on the Sci-Fi Channel in the early 90s. Movies like Destroy All Monsters, King Kong Escapes, and, all that. Then, of course, since my life went in a new direction, I began to go through some kind of weird phase that my parents were kind of concerned about. When I was at school or even driving the car to and from, the only things I could talk about to anyone was just Godzilla, nothing else. But you've probably seen some of those kids who are like addicted to like different things like Transformers or Minecraft or Ninja Turtles or even Star Wars, those kinds of kids. But back then I only wanted to have one focus on one thing, and that was Godzilla. Like if there was some kind of project or drawing that my elementary teachers wanted me to do, I would do my absolute best to include Godzilla in whatever it was. Like, if I was, like, making a drawing of me being sick in bed, Godzilla would be keeping me healthy. Or if Godzilla was in Star Wars, or even Godzilla, like, in my English homework projects, or, something like that. I would always do that. And I still have, like, all my old Godzilla and Ultraman PowerPoint presentations from my elementary youth. And I remember making those constantly. My classmates were always like, oh, wow, that's really cool, and all that. So, yeah, but my parents were quite concerned about it and so were my teachers, and I can kind of see why, because I would always draw, like, Godzilla and King Kong and nothing else. It was just nothing. I mean, of course, I liked lots of other different things, like Spider-Man like Beavis and Butthead, Ren and Stimpy, The Simpsons. I still like those things. It wasn't always Godzilla, but it was just I was young and it was the only thing I could think of. So that was pretty much all I could think of. Like if someone were to start a conversation like, "Hey, my house was on fire today," then I'd be like, "Hey, did you know that Godzilla was in a burning Godzilla form in Godzilla vs. Destroy?" And yeah, blah 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 blah. So yeah, it's like a little nerd rambling on about like something that they didn't even care about. And yes, even my teachers knew that my Godzilla Addiction was serious, and sadly, some of them still talk about it. But I was young, and that was the only thing I wanted to do with anything was just Godzilla tunnel vision. So back then, I still remember like kids would make fun of me and call me names like Godzilla Boy and all that. And when I was somewhere in the 6th grade, I just discovered Ultraman, and I thought it was amazing. It's basically like the same Godzilla scenario, but with a superhero from outer space fighting kaiju with similar monster wars from the Toho monster movies and all that. I thought it was just amazing. I still remember one point in my life that I began to love the heck out of Star Wars for a while. I wanted to get every single Lego Star Wars set collectible I could get my hands on, and then after a long while, I noticed that I really couldn't do it. I couldn't have like a complete Star Wars collection, which we all know is clearly impossible unless you're George Lucas or Disney. And even when I was younger, I was addicted to Thomas the Tank Engine. I mean, it was so cool, but anyway, for some reason, for a short while, I began to toss all my Star Wars toys and collectibles, and I actually hated Star Wars for, I think, a year. And I still don't know why I did this, because now it makes me sound like I'm a Star Wars Hitler or something. But anyway, my dad basically explained it like I would be interested in some kind of franchise for maybe about 6 months or so. Then later I would notice like a different franchise, like for example Doctor Who, and I'd be like, ooh, I like this even better. So I would have no tolerance for the previous franchise I was into, and I would just purge everything from it. And with Godzilla, that would be something I never purged, because it stuck with me for as long as I can remember. So, and I still love Star Wars, just so all of you know, I still don't hate it. I like Star Wars. It's just that I'm not like a huge geek about it. I mean, there's still stuff I geek out about it, but anyway. So after I discovered more obscure kaiju movies like Gamera and the King Kong and Godzilla ripoffs, the Ultraman series, and other kaiju TV shows from Japan and all like that, I expanded my collection with figures and books and lots of other collectible items. And since my dad and I didn't have any money to go to Comic-Con or G-Fest or places like that, different conventions, we always the cheapest we could do would be to always go to Denver, Colorado, where they went to Starfest, and oh boy, I loved it. We went there for, I believe, 5 years in a row, and I even made my own video about Starfest from 2017. So my nerdiness began to spark, and I began to love more things besides just Godzilla. I began to like lots of different things like Marvel, Doctor Who, Rocky, Alien and Predator, the Terminator series, and even the slasher horror series like Friday the 13th, Chucky, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, not to mention a whole bunch of other different retro stuff like the retro video games like Nintendo Entertainment System, Sega Genesis, and even the Atari 2600. So, since I still remember my past on how everything was all Godzilla this and Godzilla that, I don't really talk about it much unless someone brings it up to me and, they always want to talk about it. I try to think of other things, and I never did fit in too well or made a whole lot of friends. It's sad, I know, but people still liked me, and I was the funniest student in my class ever since kindergarten. I still love Godzilla and the whole kaiju franchise, and I will always cherish it, and I'll never let it go. So, yeah. For a few years ago, I discovered, YouTube. So I'd always, go to the library after school, whenever, I'd wait for my dad to get off work and pick me up so that way, he could drive me home. while that happened, I discovered this amazing side of YouTube where I wasn't the only one. I wasn't the only Godzilla kaiju addict, or, whatever you want to call it. There were dozens of them, and without watching their videos, my life would not have been the way it is now, and how I would love kaiju even more, or even learn about more obscure kaiju movies and all that. And they even taught me like how to collect and how to display, and any kind of like these Godzilla / kaiju YouTubers made me feel, and it made me feel like I belonged and I could relate to them. Like Ultraman Kronos, Goji73, Goji Fan 93, Brendan Tenold, where he does his cult movie reviews, the Angry Video Game Nerd, and even the god of all Godzilla YouTubers, Monster Island Buddies. These videos were amazing to watch when I was young, and they were great and even hilarious. The toy reviews, the facts about new kaiju from other movies, and the TV shows, and even the video games. And yes, I played the video games too. But these videos made me feel special, like I was just them. Like I was them, like I could relate to them so much. I remember watching nothing but these Godzilla YouTubers, toy reviews, comic book reviews, movie reviews, and lots of other fun videos, like Ultraman Kronos and Goji73's toy reviews, Goji Fan 93's amazing gameplays, Goji73's Godzilla and His Amazing Friends series, and of course, the one that I loved the most was Monster Island Buddies. They were a series I just loved. Not only did they have a hilarious adult content, but I loved the series as if they were a legitimate TV series, and sometimes I cried during sentimental moments. Hey, like, you haven't cried about something before? But anyway, yes, I even made a video about Monster Island Buddies just to show his appreciation of my childhood and how amazing he was. But the point is that by watching these videos, it made me feel like I was really not alone, and that I am a part of this world after all. Many people are truly different, and I'm glad that my whole Godzilla addiction phase didn't control me. I still love it, and I always will, but I just wanted to be accepted like everyone else, but there's no such thing as a perfect person. So yeah, that's pretty much my whole story of my Godzilla addiction. And all over the years, like, whenever I'd be like made fun of, or when people would just be like, "Oh, Godzilla, he's like a Godzilla nerd," and all this and that, it's like, well, yeah, I am. I'm proud of it. I'm fine with that. Except that I just don't want to be treated different like a lot of other people. I wanted to be accepted just like a human being. I don't want to be different. I don't want to be an outcast. I just want to be accepted for who I am. A Godzilla addict. Well, thank you for watching. If you have any questions at all, don't be afraid to ask them in the comments down below. Or if you want to chat, and add me on Twitter right here. If there's any other video that you want me to do, go ahead and suggest them. Thanks for watching.